Welcome, everyone. This is the EA Global Summit 2020, the virtual conference connecting EA practitioners. This is Nizam from the EA Global Summit team, and we have Venkat, the Enterprise Architecture Lead in Ericsson, who will be presenting on the Ericsson case study, how to establish enterprise architecture methodology in BSS portfolio. We've been seeing a fantastic response with over 1,000 people attending this conference, and we have a great lineup of speakers and sophisticated collaboration platform to give you the best experience attending this conference. Please ensure that you connect to the Teams channel after this session, and please use the Teams channel to log your questions as well. So we'll be requesting Venkat to answer a few questions post the session, but for all the other questions, we will use the Teams channel to provide a more sophisticated response. So I invite Mr. Venkat to present us with the Ericsson case study now. So over to you, Venkat.
Yeah. Hi all. Welcome to this session. Happy to present, as Nizam said, the Ericsson case. I'll just put up my presentation slide. Yeah, so today I'm going to present with you on the Ericsson case. We have heavily used the enterprise architecture across our portfolio. We have used it from a lot of different stakeholders, and also both at a high level as well as the deeper architecture level. So I will try to present you today, since it's going to be in 45 minutes of slot. So I will try to present you a brief overview of what we have done as part of the Ericsson in the case study, and also try to showcase you what features we have really used in order to establish this end-to-end enterprise architecture in our full portfolio, right? So to start with, what was our vision and what we are trying to deliver is enterprise architecture is completely used in all the different life cycles of our Ericsson portfolio. So for example, we take a lot of stakeholders, taking from the sales to the service delivery to the development, and we want to try to cover this enterprise architecture towards all these different stakeholders. Now, how do we do this is we have produced a lot of artifacts and contents, and we try to start with the sales, where we try to use this with the customer engagements, and that gives us a lot of add-on value because we are using in common ontology to go before the customers, and we try to use a lot of TMF standards and other standards, and make sure that the customers also understands the language. We try to expose of what are all the various capabilities that we are trying to produce out of the box from Ericsson, and then it becomes a very important tool for us to engage in the sales discussions. Then what happens is, once the sales discussions is through and the customers wants to get in towards us into the development cycle for the delivery within Ericsson, then we start something called as a service delivery, and there also we try to reuse the artifacts that were used during the sales discussions, carry forward and start discussing on the requirements. So we start detailing it down, breaking it down, and try to find the gaps of what we are trying to expose, because the content is there where we are trying to expose what we can provide and what the customer need is. And based on that, we try to do a lot of high level and low level design. And here we try to produce a lot of document generations and things like that, which becomes another repository for us to take it forward. Right. So when the sales and service delivery are done, we bring in the next stakeholder, which is the development. So here, what we try to do is we take this high level, low level design, and already in the high level, low level design, we would have provided this realization architecture towards them. So each and every development team, it is a scaling of close to kind of 80 teams that we have. and almost 5 different major portfolios that we are covering. So all of them are modeled over here, and they try to expose their application architecture, the services, the informations, and things like that already in this development state. And these artifacts are being reused in our service delivery and the sales. So this becomes a complete loop chain where we are easily getting engaged with the customers and try to showcase our artifacts, and also get a lot of good response from the customers, right? So then what do we really document over here? What is the content? So these were the stakeholders, but here I would like to present what is our content. So we try to follow some layered architecture where we try to expose something related to the application layer, information layer, business layer, strategy layer, and technology layer. All these things are being presented, and we have content in each of these layers, and try to connect all these layers so that you can drill down from the top, from the business, where, for example, sales is interested only the business layer, the service delivery is interested in the application layers, and the development is mainly focusing on the information and the application and technology layers. So there are different stakeholders who work on different layers, and we try to produce a lot of contents. Now let's go into see how we have done this overall enterprise architecture. So what we try to follow is we try to follow some standards. So we have majorly adapted the TOGAF standards of the ASIS architecture, to be architecture, and all these business technology layers and things like that. And we try to reuse a lot of assets, mainly since it is a telecom company. We try to reuse a lot from the TMF assets, like the SID library, the TOM libraries, the integration layers, and things like that, the open APIs. And so all these assets we have brought into the enterprise architecture. Not only this, there are other standards like 3GPP standards and things like that, which we also bring in as an asset, which can be reused across these different layers. And when it comes to the standards of modeling, we mainly use something called as an Archimate notation. And you know that Sparx already provides a direct integration of the Sparx Archimate MDG. So we try to reuse a lot of Archimate to explain the business layers. And also the UML and the BPMN standards we use in order to describe the flows between in the business layer and also in the application layers and things like that. And based on these inputs that we have defined 3 different layers: the business layer, application layer, and the information layer. And all these details we try to produce as a content which can be reused between multiple stakeholders, as I was trying to say. Now let's jump into the contents and see, okay, now getting into a little bit lower level of what does this content mean and how does this support all the different stakeholders. So what we built first is kind of a business layer. In the business layer, we have all the different business processes, the business use cases, and the activities and tasks. So we have captured almost, when it comes to the business use cases, we try to capture the out of the box use cases. And there is a detailed modeling of a sequence diagram, an engagement model, conceptual model. We try to do a lot of things to make sure that the customer understands both the value in a business side as well as the realization of how we have achieved that particular business use case. So these are being documented, and here mainly we try to use the BPMN standards and as well as the Archimate process and the UML use cases. And once we have this business layer, we also try to build something called as an application layer. And in the application layer, we try to expose what are all the various functions that we have in the portfolio, what capabilities we do have, and all these services interfaces. That's more important because before enterprise architecture, it was hard for us to express our architecture in terms of how we can consume it by the business users. And now we are able to expose the services that are used by the applications, interfaces, and also the deployment mechanisms. And this will help us to connect towards the business peoples and the business layers that we are trying to use. Not only that, we go one more level deeper as well, where we try to do the information details, where the application specification details are being modeled. And the best part is, as you know, the Sparx provides us a lot of customization and scripting options. So we were able to generate some codes like JSON structures, XML structures, and we try to do the UML modeling. We try to generate a JSON structure, and from the JSON structure, we can directly integrate it to the applications. And we were also trying to do some Camunda flow generations and things like that. So if you see these layers, we started with a very high level where we can use it in the customer discussions. One level down to connect the business layer towards the application layer. One level further down where we can integrate it into the R&D flows. And thus it makes the enterprise architecture use both at a top level and a deeper level. And this is the kind of connection. So we try to say which application realizes which business process and the business use cases. So we are able to, if you go into a business use case, the customers can understand, okay, if I touch this particular business use case, these are all the different applications that are required for me in order to satisfy this particular use case. And then we identify the portfolios and start identifying the gaps. The next, which application manages which information, because it's quite all the applications mainly are trying to manage some pieces of information. So we clearly segregate which information is owned by which application, and also we try to do these service specifications and everything that are required for this application, so that we can generate some JSON structures in this. So if I see our application enterprise architecture, so our enterprise architecture, we try to provide an end-to-end view from the application to business to information and vice versa, so that we can try to do either a drill down. I can start from a business process, go deeper, identify the applications, identify the informations, or if I'm just a basic developer and I want to understand the business aspects that are involved when I'm trying to do some developments, then I can start from an application and go top to understand the business use cases and things like that. So this is quite connected in our model, and we have very good response into this area. So I just wanted to give you a brief overview. Since it's a half-an-hour session, there is an Ericsson video which I can share, which can show you the aspect of how these contents are being built. So let's watch into the video. For it will be an 3 minutes video. So let's start that video and try to see the aspects. Hope you're able.
Welcome to the demo of how an enterprise architecture helps in business engagements. Enterprise architecture has 3 layers. Enterprise architecture has 3 layers: business layer, application layer, and information layer. These layers are interconnected and shows which application realizes what business process and which information entities are managed by what application. As a result, what we get is a simplified and effective architecture with drill down and drill up capabilities. The rich set of artifacts available in these layers could very well be used in customer transformation projects to customize solutions that match customer-specific needs. We could as well bring the best practices back to the standard environment. This provides an increased business efficiency and a common ontology between development and delivery organization. Not only that, these artifacts could be used for model-driven development. For example, a BPM inflow can be customized to create a persona journey model. And later, from the model we can generate Java codes, JSON schemas, so on and so forth. There is a lot of potential for automation here. In a nutshell, this improves TTM and TTC for service providers. Let's now look into what is there in the business layer. Lifecycle process. We have 3 different lifecycle process: customer, product, and production. Each lifecycle consists of multiple stages. What are these stages? Let's take an example of provider service. Provide service is further decomposed into several layers of business processes. Level 1, Level 2, Level 3, so on and so forth. Finally, we will end up in an activity diagram, which explains what a business process is up to. A complex activity is further broken down into task diagrams. Having all the business processes in place, we could arrive at a lot of use cases, which could be used for both development as well as for the customer transformation projects. There are about 370 out-of-the-box use cases spread across different segments like prepaid, postpaid, and partner. Let's have a look at one of the use cases. The use case diagram reuses activities from business process and shows the applications involved in realizing a use case. Business processes are connected to application layer to show the realization perspective, and let's move on to the application layer. In application layer, we have structure model, service, and interface model. Structure model provides end-to-end landscape of all application components and services. These components expose over different interfaces. Any given business process, we could identify connected application and its services and interfaces. Applications manage a lot of information objects available in information layer. Let's see, what are those? In information layer, we have common information model, where we have modeled a whole lot of data entities around different domains like customer, product, service, resource. To summarize, business layer with lifecycle, business processes and use cases. Application layer with structure, service, and interface models, and information layer with common information model, put together provides us effective architecture for increased business efficiency with a lot of automation possibilities.
Yeah, so let's continue with the presentation now back. So as you've seen that I have shown in this video, we have a clear layered architecture, and we have all these artifacts that are produced which are interconnected, and that helps us in a lot of things. We try to do a model driven architecture where we try to generate the JSON structures, the Java codes and things like that. We try to use it in the customer transformation projects, and that gives us a value to improve the content, because as you have seen, we try to provide the content in front of the customers. We try to do the service delivery part, and then whatever is the best learnings, we try to harvest them back into the standard models. And all the architecture developments and architecture decisions, as you see in the service interfaces that are exposed by, and you know that Ericsson is quite complex systems. We have a lot of products, so it makes us much more simpler to manage all these products, to understand the services that are exposed and how we are trying to integrate with the applications, right? So now what I will try to do is, until now it was more of an overview that I was showing. So let me take you into some of the sample models that we have done. I cannot, because of time restriction, we will not be able to go into details, but at least I can show you some glimpse of the models that we have produced in the enterprise architecture, and that helps you to understand what we have done. So I'm going to showcase you something related to the business layer, the technical layer, and also the customers and the standard EA layer. And the best part is, like, one of the challenge that was given towards us when we started using enterprise architecture is there is a heavy UX that is involved in our models. They said that it should not be looked as kind of just a library where we try to document something and it is too technical. It has to be used by the customers, and also they requested that these has to be integrated into our product documentations. So we have brought in a lot of UX angles, and I can take one of the examples like this when we try to document an use case like an engagement model. So we try to say what are the various parties that are involved, what is the services that are involved, what is the kind of financials. So if you see here, here we have tried to use all the different image embedding that is required from the Sparx. So you know that we can convert an artifact into a specific image and a lot of connections. So this becomes much more value add because we are not just trying to show a very raw technical data, but a very high level UX kind of principles. So this is kind of an engagement model we produce in the business layer for showing our use cases. And similarly, when it comes to the use case connection towards our applications, then we try to use these sequence diagrams where we try to showcase what are all the various different applications we have. And when we are trying to connect the applications, we try to use the services that are exposed. So you know that there is a capability called port and exposing of the components life cycle and all those things. So we try to use this lifelines and the services so that we can showcase the exact real services that are used in our development. And this makes the customer feel a little bit comfortable because they see that, okay, this is the use case I want, and this is what are all the various applications involved from a portfolio, and these are the services that I am trying to connect. Then it makes easy for them to understand our application and as well as for us to understand the gaps that the customer has. Then not only that, this is kind of a business layer that we try to do. As I said, we are also trying to bring in a lot of the asserts from the TMF. So we try to bring in all the open API asserts, and this is kind of an ODA framework which is brought from the TMF. So we try to get all those asserts, import them, and try to create some structure like this so that we can showcase to the customers all the standard environments and standard contents that we have. Similarly, the customer projects we try to do, and also we can try to do some detailed technical as well. So like the Kubernetes model, the resource mapping, and things like that. So these are all the deeper modeling. So what we are trying to say here is like, we are covering almost all the different types of stakeholders, as I said, and also we are trying to do deeper modeling, like technical modeling, higher level modelings like the business modeling, and also the customer engagement modeling, where we can try to do the harvesting and bringing back of the artifacts, right? And this is the kind of a Prolaborate view that we are trying to use. There are heavy models that we have done. It's almost 40 or odd instances that we create and try to showcase for each and every specific customers for whatever is required. For example, if you want 5G, then we try to do a specific 5G related Prolaborate instance and try to showcase towards them, right? Now, if I go back, so these were until now explanations of what we have done in the Ericsson in order to get this end-to-end value from this enterprise architecture. Now, a few minutes I will spend on some of the tool aspects and also some feedback. So when it comes to the enterprise architecture, we have used in a lot of features from the enterprise architecture. We have created our own MDG file where we have different artifacts and customized ones which are required for ourselves. So we have done our own MDG artifact. We have done heavy scripting for automations, and what we have also prepared as a feature which was done by the Sparx India as a customization is like these scriptings, we wanted to schedule them on a nightly basis because there are heavy extractions that are happening, updations that are happening. So we want not to disturb during the daytime. So they have developed as a particular Ericsson specific customization where we are able to schedule those scripts that are required in the enterprise architecture. Similarly, we have done heavily in the service delivery part for the document generations. So we try to generate the HLD and LLDs, which can be showcased to the customers and things like that. And as I said, in the model-driven development, we are also trying to generate the codes that are required. So not heavy, all the complex Java codes, but at least the basics of the structures and the JSON structure, Camunda flows, which can be taken as a configurations back into the applications so that this enterprise architecture is not just seen as a separate repository. It can also drive the development. And also we try to take it to a lot of documentations that we expose to the customers. We use features like clone, version control, baselining, and it's heavily used because we need to maintain a lot of versions and things like that. And recently we have also started, there was a requirement to have Jira to be maintained in Jira, and we are exploring the possibilities of having a Jira integrations. And you know, the enterprise architecture provides Jira integration, so we want to bring in the requirements so that I can connect it back towards my artifacts that I have in this enterprise architecture. So that was the features that were used in the Sparx. And when it comes to the Prolaborate, we are also using heavily the Prolaborate part. And as I said, we have a lot of instances that we create in Prolaborate, and we try to target it to the specific stakeholders. And that's the best part of Prolaborate, because we don't want to expose everything that is there in the enterprise architecture towards the customers or the stakeholders. So there are specific target areas, like for example, the customer wants to see only the 5G related. Then we try to get a customized Prolaborate instance for them and try to give it for the sales. And also depending upon the stakeholders, they want to see different details. So we try to customize and provide different views for them. Then we use a lot of model commentings and tracking of the model. So you know that there is a feature to comment on any of the artifacts. So we pass on comments, and there is a lot of informal kind of discussions that happens. And also we can track whether what is the status of the model and things like that. And also we are using heavily the formal reviews and status tracking of the project. So we create a review when a model is completed, and then we try to get this review integrations and things like that. Recently, we are also trying the Confluence integration, because there was a request that we have Confluence pages, but we want this live model that is there in this repository to be shared into the Confluence. So we are also trying to explore and provide features to get this live model into the Confluence. And the last feature that is heavily used as well as the impact analysis model. And as I said, we want this drill down capabilities, and we cannot suffice all the stakeholders to provide all different kind of views they need. So what we try to provide them is the impact analysis model from the Prolaborate, so that they can take any specific artifact, for example, a particular business process, and then they can drill down deeper and try to see all other connected artifacts, and they can build their own set of views. So that's the kind of features that we use both in Sparx and Prolaborate, and that's quite good, because we can able to expose these contents in a controlled manner to the different stakeholders that we have. So that were the features, and then a few feedbacks. So we regularly try to get feedbacks from the different stakeholders that we have, and the main thing we get as a feedback is it's a very good high efficient way of architectural governance, because as I said, the portfolio is spread across multiple regions, it's multiple products. So all these things need to be put into a common place where each one can see others and try to maintain it. The other part which is also said as a feedback is it really improves the efficiency, because we are sharing a common ontology, we are trying to take it to the customer best practices, and that becomes a reusable artifact for us into multiple customer regions, because once we get into a customer, we get what is required, we harvest them back, and then the harvested content into the standard can be taken into the next customers, and this really reduces the TCO of handling of these customers. And the specific also there are specific feedbacks from the customers. They say it's very good that we get a common ontology between the development and us. From the sales team, they are quite happy with the high scale UX oriented models, because it's not kind of we should not provide a lot of technical dry models for the sales. And as I showed, the engagement model and things like that, which are quite UX centric, and they are quite happy to use it in front of the customer engagements and things like that. From a service delivery perspective, they try to connect to the development with the services and try to generate the HLDs and LLDs based on the artifacts. So they are quite happy in connecting directly with the development. And for the development, the complex architecture is captured, and this helps in reducing a lot of redundancy. So we know if a product, what is a product being supported, and what are the various services exposed, and things like that. Right. So that was a kind of a feedback, and nothing else. So we also try to regularly capture we have a common tools board across Ericsson, and we try to capture, and if I see the users, there are close to from a development organization itself, there are close to 800 users who are trying to do their own designs and the documentations for the development part, their own products. And there are a lot of service delivery, sales, and customer organization. So what we try to do is we try to collectively try to get the feedbacks, and we keep on posting those feedbacks and improvement suggestions. One of the major thing which came up in every discussions that we have, and they wanted some the suggestions. So I thought of taking this feedback into this forum. It's quite good that we use the enterprise architecture and Prolaborate, and the main requirement that everyone is trying to put is, can we have an web-based EA editor? That's one of the major requirement that is coming in all our discussions with the different stakeholders, and also targeted lighter version of the modeling environment. So what I have done is I have tried to provide a mock-up screen for you to understand what this requirement is. So what they're asking is, like, if there is a person or a stakeholder, then he tries to log in. Depending upon his login, then we have to provide some targeted artifacts. We should not show all the artifacts, because as you have seen in my repository, there will be like almost like 10,000 diagrams and multiple artifacts that are there. But I don't want to show all those to these users, because they want to see only those contents which they are going to work upon. Then I can show this targeted artifacts towards these customers, towards that role who is going to do this modeling, and a diagrammer which is made much more simpler in a web-based. When I say web-based, it should be easy for them to targeted creation of, say, a sequence diagram, activity diagram, and things like that. And there should be some guiding principles that helps the person to do the diagrammer. So the reason for this is each role needs specific artifacts to work upon, and a web-based tool is easy and also seen as a latest mechanism. So this is one of the feedback which I would like to bring up, and I hope Sparx and Prolaborate would accept this as best way, because this tool is heavily used by us, and there is a lot of appreciation and things like that. So this is a collective feedback for an web-based EA editor tool that we want. Right. So that was the part that I had to play. So I think that's my end of the presentation, and I can open up for questions.
Venkat, thank you very much for the very interesting session. It kind of brought up a very candid picture of how what kind of efforts you have put in to establish a practice like this. We have a few questions, and one was from Andrew. The question was, how long did it take to standardize this? What kind of efforts were involved, like training, etc.?
Yeah, so it's a long journey. It's not that easy. So almost like it's I have been at least as an expert in this area for the past 5 years, and we initially were not able to take it into all the customer details. So what we were thinking is, mainly we want to take our applications and our developments into part. So it almost took kind of 1 year for us to put forth all these methodologies and practices and getting these applications and details of the informations. And then we started trying to get into the customer exposures, and slowly started this business layers connection towards these applications, and we are slowly evolving. So it's a kind of long journey, like kind of 5 years. And it was an effort that was put from all different stakeholders, and mainly the company's vision of getting this end-to-end towards all the different stakeholders, knowing its value.
Oh, yeah, thanks, Venkat. So there's a question from Steve. They say, you mentioned MDG. Is there anything specific to TM Forum, or is that of your own?
No, MDG is was a feature that we try to use because you know that the Ericsson, we are using multiple layers: business layer, application layer, information layer, and also we are trying to use different types of diagrams like UML diagram, Archimate diagrams, and things like that. So we want to consolidate all these things to provide a common toolbox for the users, so that they don't jump between toolboxes, multiple diagrams, and that becomes very difficult for the users. So in that sense, we have consolidated all those things into a common MDG technology, and it is an Ericsson specific MDG where we have put forth these toolbox for making the developers much more easier.
Yeah, thanks, Venkat. I mean, as on a personal note, I think I know we've been the kind of efforts you've been putting on this, and we know how we have evolved over a period of years. So thanks for sharing this experience. I think there were a few comments on the wireframing that you shared as well. I would just like to clarify to the audience that there was a wireframe that you have come up yourself as an idea, correct? So they were just saying if this is a real tool. But this is something that you have come up with as a suggestion. So we'll circle it back to Sparx Systems as well. I guess that's so I mean that's the kind of questions that we had, and people had some questions on like not unable to see the video, but I have informed them that the whole presentation will be made available post the conference, which includes the video as well. The video was really good, very well articulated and summarized your entire practice. We can see you have put in incredible amount of efforts to put together this presentation. So on behalf of the whole summit team, we thank you very much for your time and efforts to do this presentation for us. So we have a Teams channel in which people may be raising questions or would be willing to discuss with you, but we also understand, you know, you may not be able to contribute all the time necessary to do the conversation, but the channel will be available for all of us, so you can participate and share your comments anytime when time permits.
Yep.
Okay, so that's it from us, and thank you very much everyone for your time as well, and thanks once again Venkat for your efforts and sharing your experience.